It was late October, and the chill in the air seemed to slice through skin and bone. The small town of Ravenswood, nestled deep within a sprawling forest, had an eerie charm. The locals swore by its rich history, haunted houses, and unexplained phenomena. But the true terror lay hidden in the folklore of the Ravenswood Broadcasting Network's late-night show, True Scary Stories. The show had been running for over 2 decades, hosted by the enigmatic and reclusive DJ Raymond Cross. Raymond was a man of shadows, his gravelly voice a siren call to the insomniacs and night owls who sought a blend of comfort and fright. He had a way of narrating stories that made listeners feel the creeping dread right alongside him. Tonight's show, however, was destined to be different. Unbeknownst to Raymond, an ancient evil was about to awaken. The clock struck midnight, and Raymond's voice crackled through the airwaves. Good evening, Ravenswood. This is Raymond Cross, and you're listening to True Scary Stories. Tonight, we delve into the unknown, the terrifying, and the utterly bizarre. Stay tuned, because this story might just be the one to keep you up all night. As he settled into his chair, a heavy, leather-bound book lay open before him. This was no ordinary book. It was a collection of tales passed down through generations, known as the Whispering Tome. The stories within were said to be true accounts of the town's darkest secrets, written in blood and bound with human skin. Raymond had never dared to read from it, until now. Raymond's fingers traced the book's worn edges. He cleared his throat and began to read. Our first story tonight is called The Unseen Whisper. In the early 1800s, Ravenswood was home to a young woman named Eliza Bennet. Eliza was known for her beauty and kindness, but she harbored a secret that would lead to her untimely demise. As Raymond read, he felt a cold breeze sweep through the studio. Ignoring it, he continued. Eliza was a healer, skilled in the arts of herbal medicine, but one night, she was visited by a stranger cloaked in darkness. He offered her knowledge beyond her wildest dreams in exchange for a single drop of her blood. Desperate to help her ailing mother, Eliza agreed. The stranger revealed himself to be a demon named Azazel. He taught Eliza forbidden spells and rituals, which she used to cure her mother. But with each use of dark magic, Eliza became more entangled in Azazel's grasp. She began hearing whispers in her mind, urging her to commit unspeakable acts. Raymond paused, feeling a sudden pressure in his chest. The studio lights flickered, but he pressed on. One fateful night, Eliza succumbed to the whispers. She sacrificed her own mother to Azazel, believing it would grant her eternal power. Instead, she was cursed to wander the forest as a vengeful spirit, her soul bound to the demon forever. As Raymond finished the tale, a chill ran down his spine. He glanced around the studio, half expecting to see Eliza's ghostly figure lurking in the shadows. But there was nothing, only the oppressive silence of the night. Just as Raymond was about to introduce the next story, a strange sound echoed through his headphones. It was a series of clicks and hisses, like a distorted transmission. Then, a voice, soft and barely audible, whispered, "Raymond, can you hear me?" His heart raced. "Who is this? How did you get on this frequency?" The voice replied, "I am Eliza. You have awakened something that should have remained buried. Azazel's curse is spreading. You must stop reading from that book." Raymond's hands trembled. He looked down at the Whispering Tome, now pulsing with a dark energy. "What do you mean? How do I stop it?" Eliza's voice grew fainter. "You must find the relic hidden in the forest. It holds the power to banish Azazel. Hurry before it's too late." The transmission cut off, leaving Raymond in stunned silence. He knew the forest well. It was where he often went to clear his mind. But searching for a relic in the dead of night? It sounded insane. Yet, the urgency in Eliza's voice was undeniable. Raymond grabbed a flashlight and headed into the forest, his breath visible in the frigid air. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches swaying in the wind. Every rustle, every snap of a twig, made his heart pound harder. He followed the path described in Eliza's tale, deeper into the woods than he had ever ventured. The darkness seemed to close in around him, suffocating and oppressive. Then, he saw it, a faint glow emanating from beneath a gnarled old oak tree. As he approached, he noticed strange symbols carved into the bark. Kneeling, he dug through the underbrush and uncovered a small, ornate box. Inside lay a relic, a pendant in the shape of an eye, with a blood-red gem at its center. The moment he touched it, a surge of energy coursed through him. He knew this was the key to stopping Azazel. But before he could react, a chilling laugh echoed through the forest. Raymond spun around, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, cloaked being with eyes like burning coals. "Foolish mortal," Azazel hissed. "You dare challenge me?" Raymond gripped the pendant tightly. "I'm ending this. You won't torment Ravenswood any longer." Azazel's laughter grew louder, more menacing. "You think a simple trinket can defeat me? I've existed for centuries, feeding on the fear and despair of humans. You are nothing." Summoning all his courage, Raymond raised the pendant. "By the power of Eliza's sacrifice and the blood of the innocent, I banish you, Azazel, to the depths from which you came." A blinding light erupted from the pendant, enveloping Azazel. The demon's screams pierced the night, a sound of pure agony. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light vanished. Azazel was gone. Raymond stumbled back to the studio, exhausted but triumphant. He placed the pendant on his desk, its gem now dull and lifeless. As he sank into his chair, a sense of peace washed over him. The curse was lifted, and Eliza's spirit was finally at rest. He took a deep breath and addressed his listeners. "Thank you for staying with me tonight, Ravenswood. The stories we share here are more than just tales. They're a reminder of the darkness that lurks in the corners of our world. But remember, even in the darkest times, there is always hope." Raymond closed the show with his usual sign-off, feeling a newfound appreciation for the power of storytelling. As he left the studio, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm glow on the town of Ravenswood. Little did he know, the true horror was just beginning. Weeks passed, and life in Ravenswood returned to normal, or so it seemed. Raymond continued his late-night show, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The pendant, now hidden away in a drawer, seemed to call to him in his dreams, whispering warnings of a lingering threat. One night, as Raymond prepared for his broadcast, he noticed a strange envelope on his desk. It was old, yellowed with age, and sealed with a wax emblem of an eye, the same symbol as the pendant. He opened it with trembling hands and found a letter written in elegant, archaic script. "Dear Raymond, the battle is far from over. Azazel's banishment is temporary. To truly vanquish him, you must destroy the source of his power, the ancient tree in the heart of the forest. Only then will Ravenswood be free. Yours in eternal vigilance, Eliza Bennet." Raymond's heart sank. He had thought the nightmare was over, but it seemed he had only scratched the surface. Determined to protect his town, he resolved to finish what he had started. Gathering his courage, Raymond returned to the forest. The night was eerily silent, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. He followed the path once more, the pendant guiding him with a faint, pulsing light. As he approached the ancient oak, he felt a sinister presence. The tree's twisted branches seemed to reach out, clawing at the sky. At its base, a dark, gaping hole yawned like the mouth of a great beast. Raymond knew what he had to do. He placed the pendant on the ground and began chanting the incantation from Eliza's letter. The air grew thick with malevolent energy, and the ground trembled beneath his feet. Suddenly, Azazel's voice roared from the abyss. "You dare defy me again? I will consume your soul." Raymond's voice wavered, but he continued the chant. The pendant's light intensified, burning with the fury of 1,000 suns. The tree groaned and splintered, its roots writhing like serpents. With a final, deafening crack, the tree collapsed. A blinding light engulfed the forest, and Azazel's screams echoed into the night, fading into nothingness. The pendant shattered, its power spent. Raymond awoke at dawn, lying in the clearing where the tree had stood. The forest was calm, bathed in the soft glow of morning. He felt a profound sense of relief, knowing that Azazel was truly gone. Returning to Ravenswood, He shared his story with the townspeople. They listened in awe, grateful for his bravery. The town's dark past had been laid to rest, and a new chapter of peace began. Raymond continued his show, but true scary stories took on a new tone. Instead of tales of terror, he focused on stories of courage and resilience. The people of Ravenswood had faced the darkness and emerged stronger for it. As the years passed, Raymond became a legend, his name synonymous with the town's survival. And though the forest still held its secrets, the shadow of Azazel was no more. Ravenswood thrived, its spirit unbroken. And so, the tale of Raymond Cross and the Whispering Tome became a part of Ravenswood's folklore, a true scary story with a hopeful ending. Months passed, and Ravenswood basked in its newfound peace. Raymond had become a local hero, often invited to community gatherings and school events to share his tales of bravery. He reveled in the normalcy that had returned to his life and took comfort in the fact that the darkness seemed to have finally lifted. One evening, as he was sorting through old files in the studio, Raymond stumbled upon a letter tucked between the pages of an old journal. It was addressed to him, but the handwriting was unfamiliar. With a mix of curiosity and apprehension, he opened the letter and began to read. Dear Raymond, there is one final truth you must know. Azazel was not the only demon bound to Ravenswood. Others wait in the shadows, drawn to the power that still lingers here. The relic you destroyed was merely one of many. You have begun a journey that is far from over. Seek out the Order of the Guardians. They will help you understand your true role in this battle. Beware the signs, for the demons will not rest until they have reclaimed what was lost. In eternal vigilance, Eliza Bennett. Raymond's heart sank. The relief he had felt was fleeting, replaced by the weight of a new and ominous responsibility. He knew he could not ignore the warning. The Order of the Guardians was a name he had heard whispered in hushed tones, a secret society said to protect the world from supernatural threats. Determined to uncover the truth, Raymond reached out to a trusted friend, Eleanor Blackwood. Eleanor was an expert in occult lore and had been a frequent guest on his show. She was known for her vast knowledge and unyielding determination to uncover the secrets of the supernatural. Eleanor, I need your help, Raymond said, handing her the letter. Eleanor read the letter, her eyes widening with concern. The Order of the Guardians. I've heard rumors, but never thought they truly existed. If they do, we need to find them. They could be our only hope. Together, Raymond and Eleanor began their search. They combed through ancient texts, old maps, and forgotten diaries, piecing together clues that led them to a hidden network of tunnels beneath Ravenswood. It was said that these tunnels were built centuries ago by the town's founders to protect against dark forces. After weeks of searching, they found the entrance to the tunnels hidden behind a false wall in the basement of the Ravenswood Historical Society. The air inside was damp and musty, filled with the scent of earth and old books. Armed with flashlights and determination, they ventured deeper into the darkness. The tunnels seemed to stretch on forever, twisting and turning like a labyrinth. After hours of searching, they stumbled upon a hidden library filled with ancient tomes and artifacts. At the center of the room was a massive stone table, etched with runes and symbols of protection. This must be it, Eleanor whispered. The heart of the Order of the Guardians. As they explored the library, they discovered journals and records detailing the Order's battles against dark forces throughout history. The Guardians had indeed been real, a secret society dedicated to protecting humanity from demonic threats. But the records stopped abruptly a century ago, leaving their fate a mystery. Just as they began to lose hope, they heard a soft voice behind them. You have found us. Raymond and Eleanor spun around to see an elderly man with piercing blue eyes standing in the doorway. I am Marcus, the last guardian. We have been waiting for someone to take up the mantle. Marcus explained that the Order had been decimated in a battle against Azazel's minions many years ago. He had been hiding, waiting for a worthy successor to appear. With Raymond's discovery of the relic and his banishment of Azazel, he had proven himself to be that successor. You have awakened the ancient evil, Raymond, Marcus said gravely, but you have also shown the courage and strength needed to defeat it. The Order needs you to lead us into the final battle. Raymond felt the weight of destiny settle upon him. He had always been a storyteller, but now he realized that his true purpose was far greater. With Eleanor and Marcus by his side, he vowed to rebuild the order and protect Ravenswood from the encroaching darkness. Raymond, Eleanor, and Marcus began the arduous task of rebuilding the Order of the Guardians. They recruited trusted allies from Ravenswood and beyond, forming a new council dedicated to fighting the supernatural threats that loomed on the horizon. They trained rigorously, learning ancient spells and rituals, and forging weapons imbued with protective magic. The new Guardians were a diverse group, each bringing unique skills and knowledge to the fight. Among them were, as the Guardians prepared for the inevitable confrontation, they uncovered more relics and artifacts hidden throughout Ravenswood. These powerful items, when combined, could form a barrier strong enough to keep the demons at bay. As the Guardians trained and fortified their defenses, strange occurrences began to plague Ravenswood. Reports of shadowy figures, unexplained disappearances, and eerie whispers filled the air. It was clear that the demons were preparing for a full-scale assault. One night, while Raymond was broadcasting his show, the studio was plunged into darkness. The equipment malfunctioned, and a chilling voice echoed through the room. "We are coming for you, Raymond Cross. You cannot stop us." Raymond felt a surge of fear, but also a renewed determination. He knew that the final battle was drawing near, and he had to be ready. He rallied the Guardians, and together they devised a plan to confront the demonic forces head-on. The night of the final battle arrived, shrouded in an unnatural fog. The Guardians gathered at the ruins of the ancient oak tree, the place where Azazel had been banished. They formed a protective circle, each holding a relic imbued with powerful magic. As the fog thickened, the ground trembled, and the air grew thick with the stench of sulfur. The demons emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with malevolence. Leading them was a new and terrifying figure, Azazel's lieutenant, a demon named Baal. Baal was a towering figure, wreathed in flames and darkness. He snarled at the Guardians, his voice a guttural growl. "You dare defy us? You will be destroyed." Raymond stepped forward, holding the pendant that had once banished Azazel. "We stand united against you, Baal. This is our home, and we will protect it." The battle was fierce and brutal. The Guardians fought with everything they had, wielding their relics and spells with precision and strength. Marcus, despite his age, proved to be a formidable warrior, casting powerful incantations that weakened the demons. Eleanor used her knowledge of ancient magic to create barriers and traps, while David led the charge with his tactical prowess. Sarah and Lila combined their abilities to unleash devastating attacks that cut through the demonic ranks. As the battle raged on, Raymond confronted Baal. The demons' fiery eyes blazed with hatred, and their clash was a struggle of light against darkness. With the pendant glowing brightly, Raymond chanted the incantation that Eliza had taught him. Baal roared in fury, but the power of the pendant was too great. A blinding light enveloped the demon, and with a final, earth-shattering scream, Baal was banished to the abyss. With Baal's defeat, the remaining demons fled, their power broken. The fog lifted, and the first light of dawn illuminated the battlefield. The Guardians stood victorious, but their hearts were heavy with the knowledge that the fight was far from over. Raymond, Eleanor, Marcus, and the rest of the Guardians vowed to continue their vigilance, knowing that other threats might still lurk in the shadows. They would protect Ravenswood and ensure that the darkness never again threatened their home. Raymond returned to his radio show, but True Scary Stories took on a new tone. Instead of tales of terror, he focused on stories of courage and resilience. The people of Ravenswood had faced the darkness and emerged stronger for it. As the years passed, Raymond became a legend, his name synonymous with the town's survival. And though the forest still held its secrets, the shadow of Azazel was no more. Ravenswood thrived, its spirit unbroken. Decades later, the story of Raymond Cross and the Order of the Guardians became a cherished part of Ravenswood's history. The Guardians continued their mission, training new generations to protect against supernatural threats. Raymond's granddaughter, Emily Cross, took up the mantle of Guardian. She grew up hearing the tales of her grandfather's bravery and knew that it was her duty to continue his legacy. Under her leadership, the Order flourished, adapting to the challenges of the modern world while honoring the traditions of the past. The town of Ravenswood remained a beacon of hope and resilience, a testament to the strength of those who dared to stand against the darkness. And as long as there were guardians to protect it, the town would remain safe from the terrors that lurked in the shadows. In the end, the true scary story of Ravenswood was not one of fear, but of bravery, unity, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Story 2. The Haunting of Ravenswood Manor. The Haunting of Ravenswood Manor. It had been years since Emily Cross had last set foot in Ravenswood. She had left the town behind to pursue her career as a journalist, but the memories of her childhood there never truly faded. When she received a letter from her childhood friend, Sarah Bennett, urging her to return, Emily knew she couldn't ignore it. Sarah's words were desperate and filled with an ominous sense of urgency. "Emily, you must come back to Ravenswood. Strange things are happening again, and I fear the town is in grave danger. We need your help." With a heavy heart, Emily packed her bags and made the journey back to the town that had shaped her youth. As she drove through the winding forest roads, the memories flooded back. Her grandfather Raymond's stories, the ancient relics, and the battles against dark forces. She had always felt a connection to Ravenswood, a sense of responsibility to protect it from the supernatural threats that lurked in the shadows. Upon arriving in Ravenswood, Emily was greeted by the familiar faces of her old friends. Sarah Bennett, now a historian dedicated to preserving the town's secrets, and David Hawthorne, a former soldier turned town sheriff, welcomed her with open arms. The reunion was bittersweet, overshadowed by the sense of dread that hung in the air. "Emily, it's good to see you," Sarah said, hugging her tightly, "but I'm afraid the reason we called you back is far from pleasant." David nodded, his expression grim. "Strange things have been happening at Ravenswood Manor. It's been abandoned for decades, but recently, people have reported seeing lights inside and hearing eerie noises. We fear something has awakened there." Ravenswood Manor was an old, decrepit mansion on the outskirts of town. It had been abandoned for as long as Emily could remember, its dark history shrouded in mystery. The townsfolk spoke of it in hushed tones, claiming it was cursed and haunted by the spirits of those who had perished within its walls. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily, Sarah, and David decided to investigate the manor. Armed with flashlights, recording equipment, and their unwavering resolve, they ventured into the heart of the abandoned mansion. The manor loomed before them, its once grand facade now crumbling and overgrown with ivy. As they stepped inside, a chill ran down Emily's spine. The air was thick with dust and decay, and the faint scent of mildew lingered in the corridors. The mansion's interior was a labyrinth of dark hallways, ornate but weathered furniture, and rooms frozen in time. "Stay close," David warned, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. "We don't know what we're dealing with." As they explored the manor, strange occurrences began to unfold. They heard whispers echoing through the halls, felt cold drafts despite the still air, and saw fleeting shadows darting just beyond the reach of their lights. Emily's journalistic instincts kicked in, and she began documenting everything they encountered. In one room, they discovered an old diary belonging to Isabella Ravenswood, the last known resident of the manor. The entries were filled with disturbing accounts of nightmares, ghostly apparitions, and a growing sense of dread. Isabella wrote about hearing voices, seeing figures in the mirrors, and feeling an overwhelming presence watching her. "There's something in this house," Isabella had written. "Something ancient and malevolent. I fear it will consume us all." As they delved deeper into the manor, the phenomena grew more intense. Doors slammed shut on their own, objects moved inexplicably, and the temperature dropped to an icy chill. Emily felt a constant sense of being watched, as if unseen eyes were following her every move. In one of the bedrooms, they discovered a hidden passage leading to a basement. The air grew colder as they descended the narrow staircase, the darkness becoming almost tangible. The basement was a cavernous space filled with forgotten relics, old furniture, and dusty bookshelves. At the center of the room stood an ancient altar, covered in strange symbols and surrounded by melted candles. Emily felt a deep sense of unease as she approached it, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. It was clear that dark rituals had taken place here. rituals that had awakened something malevolent. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and a chilling voice echoed through the basement. "You should not have come here." Emily turned, her flashlight illuminating a shadowy figure standing at the far end of the room. It was a woman, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes hollow and lifeless. It was Isabella Ravenswood, or rather, what remained of her. "You must leave this place," Isabella's ghostly form whispered. "The darkness has awoken, and it seeks to claim more souls." Emily, Sarah, and David stood frozen in shock, staring at the ghostly apparition of Isabella Ravenswood. The air around them crackled with an otherworldly energy, and a palpable sense of dread filled the room. "What happened here, Isabella?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. Isabella's ghostly form wavered, her eyes filled with sorrow. "This house is cursed. My family made a pact with an ancient entity long ago, seeking power and wealth. In return, they bound their souls to the manor, and now we are trapped here for eternity." As Isabella spoke, the shadows in the basement seemed to grow darker, closing in around them. Emily felt a suffocating weight pressing down on her chest, but she knew she had to uncover the truth. "Is there a way to break the curse?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Isabella nodded slowly. "There is a ritual, a way to sever the ties that bind us to this place. But it is dangerous, and the entity will not let us go easily. You must find the Book of Shadows, hidden somewhere in the manor. It contains the incantations needed to break the curse." David's grip tightened on his flashlight. "We'll do whatever it takes to free you, Isabella." Isabella's form began to fade, her voice growing faint. "Hurry, before the darkness consumes you as well. Find the book and perform the ritual." Determined to free Isabella and the other trapped souls, Emily, Sarah, and David embarked on a desperate search for the Book of Shadows. The manor seemed to come alive around them, the walls groaning and shifting as if reacting to their presence. They scoured every room, overturning furniture, searching through dusty drawers, and examining old paintings for hidden compartments. The house resisted their efforts, doors slamming shut, and ghostly whispers taunting them from the shadows. In the library, Emily discovered a hidden compartment behind a bookshelf. Inside was a dusty, leather-bound tome with the title Book of Shadows, etched in faded gold letters. She carefully opened the book, revealing pages filled with ancient incantations and rituals. "We found it," Emily whispered, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. Sarah examined the book closely. "These rituals are complex and dangerous. We need to perform them precisely, or we risk unleashing even greater horrors." David nodded, his expression resolute. "We'll do whatever it takes. We can't leave these souls trapped here." With the Book of Shadows in hand, they returned to the basement, where the ancient altar stood waiting. Emily read aloud the instructions for the ritual, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. They gathered the necessary ingredients, salt, candles, and a vial of blood, as specified in the book. The air grew colder with each step of the ritual, the shadows deepening and swirling around them. As they began the incantation, the room seemed to vibrate with a dark energy. The ghostly form of Isabella appeared once more, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "Be strong," she whispered. "The entity will try to stop you." Suddenly, the room was plunged into darkness, the candles snuffed out by an unseen force. A guttural growl echoed through the basement, and the temperature dropped even further. "You cannot break the pact," a voice boomed, filled with malevolence. Emily's heart raced, but she continued the incantation, her voice growing stronger. The air crackled with energy, and a blinding light erupted from the altar, pushing back the darkness. The entity's roar of fury filled the room, but the light grew brighter, enveloping them all. The shadows writhed and screamed, unable to withstand the power of the ritual. With a final, earth-shaking roar, the darkness was banished, and the room fell silent. The oppressive weight lifted, and the air grew warm once more. As the light faded, they found themselves standing in the now-silent basement. Isabella's ghostly form appeared one last time, her expression filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have freed us. The curse is broken. With those words, Isabella's form dissolved into shimmering light, and the air seemed to sigh with relief. The manor, once a place of torment and despair, felt lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted. Emily, Sarah, and David emerged from the manor, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon. They looked back at the old house, now just a decaying structure, its malevolent presence gone. "You did it, Emily," Sarah said, her voice filled with awe. "You saved us all." David nodded, placing a hand on Emily's shoulder. "Ravenswood owes you a debt of gratitude. You and your grandfather have both proven to be true guardians." Emily smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She knew her journey was far from over, but for now, Ravenswood was safe. The town could heal, and the spirits of those trapped in the manor could finally rest in peace. As the sun rose higher, Emily vowed to continue her work, to protect Ravenswood from any future threats. She knew the darkness would always exist, but she also knew that as long as there were those willing to stand against it, there was hope. And so, the story of the haunting of Ravenswood Manor became another chapter in the town's rich history, a testament to the bravery and resilience of those who dared to face the darkness and emerge victorious. The weeks following the exorcism of Ravenswood Manor saw a renewed sense of community and solidarity among the townspeople. Emily had become a symbol of courage, and people sought her out for guidance and reassurance. The town, long overshadowed by its dark past, began to embrace a brighter future. One evening, as Emily was organizing her grandfather's old notes and artifacts, she received a knock at her door. It was Dr. Lydia Halloway, a psychologist and expert in paranormal phenomena, who had recently moved to Ravenswood. Tall, with an air of calm confidence, Lydia had become intrigued by the recent events and wanted to offer her assistance. "Emily, I've been studying the history of Ravenswood and the events at the manor," Lydia began. "I believe there are more hidden truths that need to be uncovered. Would you be willing to work together?" Emily saw the sincerity in Lydia's eyes and welcomed the partnership. Together, they delved into the archives of Ravenswood, uncovering more about the town's hidden history and the origins of the supernatural threats it faced. In their research, Emily and Lydia discovered references to a secret society known as the Watchers. This group was said to have been founded centuries ago, dedicated to monitoring and combating supernatural forces. However, their records had been lost over time, and their existence had become a mere legend. Intrigued, they decided to trace the lineage of the Watchers. Their investigation led them to the home of an elderly woman named Martha Whitmore, a direct descendant of one of the society's founding members. Martha, with her silver hair and wise eyes, welcomed them warmly and shared her family's legacy. "My ancestors were part of the Watchers," Martha explained. "They were sworn to protect Ravenswood and keep the dark forces at bay. But over the years, the society disbanded, and much of their knowledge was lost. I have some of their old journals and artifacts, if you're interested." Emily and Lydia eagerly examined the journals, which contained detailed accounts of battles against malevolent spirits, records of protective rituals, and maps of hidden locations where powerful relics were stored. It became clear that the manor was not the only hotspot of supernatural activity in Ravenswood. One of the maps led them to an old, overgrown cemetery on the outskirts of town. According to the journals, beneath this cemetery lay a hidden sanctum used by the Watchers for their most critical rituals. Emily, Lydia, Sarah, and David decided to investigate, hoping to find more clues about the society's work. They arrived at the cemetery at dusk, the fading light casting long shadows over the ancient tombstones. Guided by the map, they located a crypt with an inscription in Latin, "Custodes Veritatis," guardians of truth. Pushing aside the heavy stone door, they descended into the crypt, their flashlights piercing the darkness. The air was damp and musty, filled with the scent of decay. As they ventured deeper, they found a hidden chamber lined with shelves of ancient tomes and artifacts. At the center of the room stood a large stone altar, covered in symbols of protection and power. "This is incredible," Lydia whispered. "The Watcher's sanctum has been untouched for centuries." Emily's eyes were drawn to a large, intricately carved box on the altar. Inside, she found a collection of relics, including a set of ornate keys and a crystal orb that pulsed with a soft, ethereal light. One of the journals indicated that these relics were used to seal and unseal powerful entities. As they examined the relics, a sense of unease settled over the group. The air grew colder, and a low, rumbling growl echoed through the crypt. Suddenly, the ground shook, and a section of the wall crumbled, revealing a hidden passage. "We need to be careful," David warned. "Whatever is down there, it doesn't want us here." Emily nodded, her resolve firm. "We have to see this through. If there's another threat to Ravenswood, we need to stop it." They followed the passage, which led to a cavernous chamber deep beneath the cemetery. The walls were covered in ancient runes, and at the center of the room stood a massive stone sarcophagus, bound with chains and inscribed with powerful words. As they approached, the crystal orb in Emily's hand began to glow brighter, resonating with the energy in the chamber. Lydia examined the runes, her face pale with realization. "This is a containment chamber," she said. "The Watchers must have sealed a powerful entity here." Before they could react, the chains around the sarcophagus snapped, and the lid began to lift. A dark, malevolent presence filled the chamber, and a figure shrouded in shadows emerged. The entity was a towering figure, its form shifting and writhing like smoke. Its eyes glowed with a sinister light, and its voice echoed with a deep, resonant timbre. "Foolish mortals," it hissed, "you have awakened me. I am Malachi, and I will bring darkness to Ravenswood." Emily felt a wave of terror wash over her, but she forced herself to stand her ground. "We won't let you harm our town." Malachi laughed, a chilling sound that reverberated through the chamber. "You are no match for me. The Watchers are gone, and their power is forgotten." David stepped forward, his grip on his flashlight tightening. "We may not be the Watchers, but we will stop you." Lydia quickly consulted the journals, finding a ritual to weaken the entity. "We need to use the relics," she said. "They are the key to binding Malachi once more." They formed a circle around the entity, holding the relics and chanting the incantation from the journal. The air crackled with energy, and the crystal orb in Emily's hand glowed with an intense light. Malachi roared in fury, but the power of the relics was too strong. The light enveloped the entity, and with a final, deafening scream, it was drawn back into the sarcophagus. The chains snapped back into place, and the chamber fell silent. With Malachi sealed once more, the group emerged from the crypt, their faces pale with exhaustion but filled with a sense of accomplishment. They knew that their work was far from over. The relics had shown them the power of the Watchers, and they realized that Ravenswood needed protectors. Emily, Lydia, Sarah, and David formed a new society, inspired by the Watchers. They called themselves the Vigil, dedicated to monitoring and combating supernatural threats. They recruited others who shared their mission, training them in the use of the relics and the ancient knowledge they had uncovered. Martha Whitmore, with her deep understanding of her family's legacy, became an invaluable mentor to the new society. Under her guidance, they restored the sanctum, preserving the knowledge and artifacts for future generations. Months passed, and the Vigil grew stronger, their network extending beyond Ravenswood. They uncovered more relics and hidden sanctums, building a repository of knowledge and power. But as they expanded their reach, they discovered that Malachi was not the only threat. Reports of strange occurrences and malevolent entities began to surface from nearby towns. It became clear that the darkness was spreading, and the Vigil's mission was more critical than ever. One evening, as Emily was reviewing reports in the sanctum, a young woman burst in, her face pale with fear. "Please, you have to help us," she begged. "Our town is being haunted by a spirit, and people are disappearing." Emily and her team quickly mobilized, gathering their relics and preparing for a new mission. They arrived in the town of Blackwood, where the streets were eerily quiet and the air was thick with a sense of dread. The townspeople spoke of a vengeful spirit that haunted the old church on the outskirts of town. They described ghostly apparitions, strange noises, and an overwhelming sense of malevolence. The Vigil approached the church, its tall spires silhouetted against the darkening sky. The air grew colder as they stepped inside, the wooden floorboards creaking under their weight. The church was filled with an oppressive darkness, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. They set up their equipment and began to investigate, their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. As they moved deeper into the church, they heard faint whispers and saw fleeting glimpses of ghostly figures. In the bell tower, they discovered an old journal belonging to Father Matthias, the last priest of the church. The journal detailed his attempts to cleanse the church of a malevolent spirit that had been summoned by a group of cultists. "I fear I have failed," Father Matthias had written. "The spirit grows stronger each day, and I am unable to contain it. If anyone finds this journal, please save our souls." Lydia examined the journal closely. "We need to perform an exorcism," she said. "But this spirit is powerful. We need to be prepared for a fight." They gathered in the nave of the church, forming a protective circle around the altar. Emily held the crystal orb, its light casting a warm glow over the group. They began the incantation, their voices steady and strong. As they chanted, the air grew colder, and the spirit manifested before them. It was a tall, gaunt figure with hollow eyes and a face twisted in rage. "You dare challenge me?" it hissed. Emily felt a wave of fear, but she forced herself to remain calm. "We will free this town from your torment." The spirit roared, and the air crackled with dark energy. The vigil held their ground, their relics glowing with power. The light from the crystal orb intensified, pushing back the darkness. With a final, deafening scream, the spirit was drawn into the orb, and the church fell silent. The oppressive weight lifted, and the air grew warm once more. With the spirit vanquished, the vigil returned to Ravenswood, their hearts filled with a sense of purpose. They knew that their mission was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Under Emily's leadership, the vigil continued to grow, attracting new members from all walks of life. They built alliances with other societies dedicated to combating supernatural threats, sharing knowledge and resources. The town of Ravenswood flourished, its people embracing the legacy of the Watchers and the Vigil. They knew that darkness would always exist, but they also knew that they had protectors who would stand against it. Emily found a sense of fulfillment in her role as a guardian, knowing that she was continuing the work of her grandfather and preserving the legacy of the Watchers. She trained new generations of Vigil members, passing on the knowledge and skills needed to protect their world. And so, the story of Ravenswood and the Vigil became a legend, a testament to the bravery and resilience of those who dared to face the darkness and emerge victorious. The town remained a beacon of hope, a place where the light of courage and unity shone brightly against the shadows. Years later, as Emily stood before a new group of recruits, she felt a deep sense of pride and hope. The Vigil had grown into a formidable force, and their network extended far beyond Ravenswood. They had faced many challenges and defeated countless threats, but their mission continued. "We are the Vigil," Emily said, her voice strong and steady. "We are the guardians of light in a world of darkness. We protect, we fight, and we stand united against the forces that seek to harm us. Together, we will ensure that the light of hope never fades." The recruits looked at her with determination and resolve, ready to take up the mantle of guardians. Emily knew that as long as there were those willing to stand against the darkness, there would always be hope. And so, the Vigil continued their eternal mission, protecting the world from the supernatural threats that lurked in the shadows. They faced each new challenge with courage and unity, knowing that they were part of a legacy that would endure for generations to come. The story of Ravenswood and the Vigil lived on, a testament to the power of bravery, unity, and the enduring light of hope. Story 3. The Darkness Below Ravenswood. The Darkness Below Ravenswood. Ravenswood was a town steeped in history and folklore, a place where the past and present intertwined in ways both enchanting and eerie. The stories of supernatural occurrences and haunted places were as much a part of the town's fabric as its ancient trees and cobblestone streets. Among these tales, the legend of the old Ravenswood mine stood out, a place long abandoned and shrouded in mystery. One crisp autumn evening, a group of local teenagers, Ethan, Megan, Tyler, and Jenna, decided to explore the old mine. They were thrill seekers, always looking for the next adventure, and the mine, with its dark tunnels and ghostly tales, was the perfect place to satisfy their curiosity. "Are you sure about this?" Megan asked, her voice tinged with both excitement and apprehension. Ethan grinned, his flashlight cutting through the encroaching darkness. "Come on, Meg. It'll be fun. Besides, it's just an old mine. What's the worst that could happen?" Tyler and Jenna exchanged nervous glances, but followed Ethan and Megan into the entrance of the mine. The air grew cooler as they descended, the daylight fading behind them until they were enveloped in complete darkness, save for the narrow beams of their flashlights. The tunnels twisted and turned, the walls damp and covered in patches of moss. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The air was thick with dust, and the silence was broken only by the sound of their footsteps and the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. "I heard this mine was closed down because of a cave-in," Tyler said, his voice echoing off the walls. "They say some of the miners' bodies were never recovered." Jenna shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "I don't know if this is such a good idea, Ethan." Ethan turned to face them, his flashlight casting an eerie glow on his face. "Relax, Jenna. We're just exploring. If it gets too creepy, we'll head back." As they ventured further, they stumbled upon an old elevator shaft, its rusty cables dangling like skeletal remains. Megan approached the edge, peering down into the abyss. "It's so deep," she whispered. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind blew through the tunnel, extinguishing their flashlights. The group was plunged into darkness, and panic set in. "Everyone, stay calm," Ethan shouted. "We need to get our lights back on." Fumbling in the dark, they managed to reignite their flashlights, but something had changed. The air felt heavier, and the sense of unease grew stronger. They continued deeper into the mine, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity. After what felt like hours, they came upon a large, open chamber. In the center stood a massive, ancient stone altar covered in strange symbols and markings. "What the hell is this?" Tyler muttered, his eyes wide with fear. Megan knelt down to examine the symbols. "These look like some kind of ancient runes. I've seen them in books about old cults and rituals." Jenna's flashlight beam flickered, casting shadows that danced menacingly on the walls. "We need to get out of here. Now." Before they could react, a deep, guttural growl resonated through the chamber. The ground beneath them trembled, and a sense of dread washed over them. "We have to go," Ethan shouted, but as they turned to leave, the tunnel behind them collapsed, sealing their exit. Trapped and terrified, they huddled together, their flashlights barely illuminating the chamber. The growling grew louder, and the temperature plummeted, their breaths visible in the frigid air. Suddenly, a dark, amorphous figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing with malevolent intensity. "You should not have come here," it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed in their minds. The entity moved closer, its form shifting and writhing like smoke. "This mine is cursed, and now you are trapped with me." Tyler tried to reason with it. "We didn't mean any harm. Please, let us go." The entity laughed, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. "There is no escape. Your souls will feed the darkness." Desperate and terrified, Megan remembered the symbols on the altar. "There might be a way to stop it," she said, her voice trembling. "Those symbols could be part of a ritual to banish the entity." Ethan, Tyler, and Jenna looked at her, their fear mixed with a glimmer of hope. "What do we need to do?" Ethan asked. Megan explained the ritual as best as she could, using the symbols as a guide. They needed to draw a circle around the altar with their blood and chant the incantation inscribed on the stone. With trembling hands, they pricked their fingers and drew the circle. As they began to chant, the entity roared in fury, its form becoming more unstable. "You cannot defeat me," it screamed, lashing out with tendrils of darkness. The ground shook, and the air crackled with energy. The group continued chanting, their voices growing stronger despite their fear. The symbols on the altar began to glow, and the entity howled in agony. With a final, deafening roar, the entity was pulled back into the altar, its form dissolving into nothingness. The chamber fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting. Exhausted and shaken, The group looked around, the reality of their ordeal sinking in. The tunnel behind them was still blocked, but they noticed another passage leading upwards. "Let's get out of here," Ethan said, his voice weak but determined. They made their way through the new passage, their flashlights flickering as they climbed. After what felt like an eternity, they saw a faint light ahead and quickened their pace. Emerging from the mine, they were greeted by the first light of dawn. The fresh air filled their lungs, and they collapsed on the ground, overwhelmed with relief. The town of Ravenswood was abuzz with the news of their survival. They were hailed as heroes, but the experience had left them changed. They couldn't forget the darkness they had faced, and the knowledge that such evil existed beneath their town haunted them. Megan dedicated herself to studying the ancient runes and rituals, determined to prevent any future awakenings of the entity. Ethan, Tyler, and Jenna became more cautious, their thrill-seeking days replaced by a deep respect for the unknown. As the years passed, the story of the old Ravenswood mine became another chapter in the town's rich history, a reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface and the courage it took to face it. Emily Cross, now a respected journalist, documented their harrowing experience, ensuring that the tale would be remembered and the lessons learned passed on to future generations. And so, the mine remained sealed, a silent testament to the horrors that lay hidden in the darkness below Ravenswood. Despite their ordeal, the group of friends couldn't shake the curiosity that lingered about the mine. The rituals and runes Megan studied fascinated her, and she began to piece together more about the mine's dark history. She found herself frequently visiting the town's library, digging through old records, and talking to anyone who had knowledge about the mine and its previous owners. One day, while sifting through a dusty box of old photographs and letters, Megan came across a letter addressed to the town's mayor from the 1920s. It spoke of strange occurrences at the mine and mentioned a hidden chamber deeper within, one that was supposedly never found. "Megan, you have to see this," she said, showing the letter to Ethan, Tyler, and Jenna during one of their regular meetups. Ethan read the letter aloud. "There's more to that mine than we thought. Maybe we only scratched the surface." The prospect of another adventure, albeit with greater caution, intrigued them. They knew they had to approach this with a plan and proper equipment. This time, they would be prepared. Months of preparation led to their return to the mine, armed with new gear, stronger flashlights, helmets, ropes, and food supplies. They felt ready to face whatever lurked below. Megan had even brought along some of the texts on ancient rituals as a precaution. The atmosphere in the mine was as oppressive as before, but this time, they moved with purpose. They followed the new passage they had discovered, hoping it would lead them to the hidden chamber mentioned in the letter. As they ventured deeper, they noticed symbols carved into the walls, similar to those they had seen in the chamber with the altar. Megan traced her fingers over them, recognizing them as part of an ancient script used to ward off evil spirits. "This is a good sign," she said. "These symbols were meant to protect us. We must be on the right path." After hours of careful navigation, they reached a massive stone door engraved with more symbols and runes. Megan deciphered the inscriptions, which warned of the dangers within and provided instructions for a protective ritual. "Let's do this," Megan said, her voice steady. "We need to follow the ritual exactly as it's written." They gathered around the door, performing the ritual with the relics they had brought. As they finished, the stone door began to creak open, revealing a vast chamber filled with ancient artifacts, scrolls, and what appeared to be an enormous, intricately carved sarcophagus at the center. "This must be it," Ethan whispered, awestruck. The hidden chamber. The air inside was thick with a sense of foreboding, but they pressed on. Megan approached the sarcophagus, examining the carvings. They depicted scenes of ancient rituals, sacrifices, and a being of immense power. As Megan read the inscriptions on the sarcophagus, she realized they told the story of an ancient sorcerer named Morvith, who had been sealed away by his own followers when his quest for power grew too dangerous. The sarcophagus was both his tomb and a prison, designed to contain his dark essence. "We need to be careful," Megan warned. "If we disturb this, we could release something even worse than what we faced before." Despite their caution, an accidental brush against the sarcophagus triggered a hidden mechanism. The lid began to slide open, and a thick, black smoke poured out, coalescing into the form of a tall, menacing figure. "Morvith!" Megan gasped, recognizing the sorcerer from the carvings. Morvith's eyes glowed with an eerie light, and his voice echoed through the chamber. "You dare to awaken me? Your world will tremble before my power." The friends stood their ground, knowing they had to act quickly. Megan began to chant an incantation from one of the scrolls, hoping it would weaken Morvith. Ethan, Tyler, and Jenna used the relics they had brought to create a protective barrier around them. Morvith laughed, his voice filled with contempt. "You think your petty magic can stop me?" The air crackled with energy as Morvith summoned dark tendrils, attacking the group. They fought back with everything they had, the relics glowing with a fierce light as they repelled his attacks. Megan's chanting grew louder, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The symbols on the sarcophagus began to glow, and Morvith's form flickered, his power wavering. "You will not prevail," Morvith roared, but the combined strength of the group and the ancient magic was too much for him. With a final, ear-splitting scream, Morvith was drawn back into the sarcophagus, the lid sealing shut with a thunderous boom. The chamber fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting once more. The friends collapsed to the ground, exhausted but victorious. "We did it," Ethan said, his voice filled with relief. "We actually did it." Megan nodded, her hands trembling from the intensity of the battle. "We need to seal this place for good. No one should ever come down here again." They performed a final ritual, using the relics to reinforce the seals on the sarcophagus and the chamber. As they finished, the stone door closed behind them, the symbols glowing faintly as a protective barrier was formed. Returning to the surface, they were greeted by the fresh morning air. The town of Ravenswood welcomed them as heroes once more, their bravery and determination ensuring the safety of the town. Megan continued her studies, now with a greater understanding of the power of the ancient rituals and relics. She dedicated herself to preserving this knowledge and protecting the town from future threats. Ethan, Tyler, and Jenna also found new purposes. Ethan became a historian, documenting the town's supernatural history. Tyler trained in emergency response, ready to act if the town faced another crisis. Jenna pursued a career in archaeology, determined to uncover and protect ancient sites and their secrets. Years passed, and Ravenswood thrived, its people living without fear of the darkness that once threatened them. Megan, Ethan, Tyler, and Jenna remained close, their bond strengthened by their shared experiences. One day, Megan received a letter from an organization known as the Vigil, a society dedicated to combating supernatural threats. They had heard of her bravery and knowledge and offered her a position among their ranks. Megan accepted, and with the support of her friends, she joined the Vigil, working alongside others who shared her mission. Together, they traveled the world, facing and defeating supernatural threats, ensuring the safety of countless towns and cities. The story of the old Ravenswood mine and the bravery of Megan, Ethan, Tyler, and Jenna became a legend, passed down through generations. The town of Ravenswood remained a place of light and hope, its people united by the courage of those who stood against the darkness. Emily Cross documented their story, ensuring that the lessons they learned and the battles they fought would never be forgotten. She continued her work as a journalist, uncovering and sharing stories of bravery and resilience from around the world. And so, the legacy of the Guardians lived on, a testament to the power of unity, courage, and the enduring light of hope in the face of darkness. Story 4. The Haunting of Hollow Creek House. The Haunting of Hollow Creek House. The small town of Ravenswood was known for its picturesque landscapes and tight-knit community. Nestled on the outskirts of the town was a long-abandoned mansion known as Hollow Creek House. It had stood vacant for decades, a decaying relic of the past that locals avoided. Stories of strange occurrences and ghostly apparitions had turned it into a place of fear and fascination. When the Mason family, John, his wife Lisa, and their teenage daughter Emily, decided to move to Ravenswood for a fresh start, they were undeterred by the house's dark reputation. The property was a bargain, and they were eager to breathe new life into the old mansion. "Are you sure about this place?" Emily asked, her voice tinged with apprehension as they pulled up to the front gate. "It's perfect, Emily," John replied, his tone optimistic. "A bit of work, and it will be beautiful again." The family spent their first few days cleaning and unpacking, slowly making the house feel like home. Despite the eerie atmosphere, they were determined to remain positive. However, it wasn't long before strange things began to happen. It started with small, almost dismissible incidents: a flickering light, cold drafts in the middle of the night, and doors creaking open on their own. Lisa tried to reassure Emily that it was just the house settling, but the uneasy feeling persisted. One night, as Emily was getting ready for bed, she noticed a cold spot in her room. The temperature dropped significantly, and she felt a chill run down her spine. She turned to see a faint figure standing in the corner, watching her with hollow eyes. Emily screamed, and her parents rushed to her room. The figure had vanished, but Emily was shaken. "There was someone here," she insisted, her voice trembling. John and Lisa exchanged worried glances, but tried to comfort their daughter. "It's just your imagination, Emily," Lisa said gently. "This house is old, and it's easy to see things that aren't there." Emily wasn't convinced, and neither were her parents, though they didn't admit it. The sense of unease grew with each passing day, and the strange occurrences became more frequent and intense. One afternoon, while exploring the attic, Emily stumbled upon an old, dusty trunk. Inside, she found a collection of vintage clothing, toys, and a diary belonging to a girl named Eleanor, who had lived in the house over a century ago. Curious, Emily began to read the diary. Eleanor's entries detailed her life in Hollow Creek House and the growing sense of dread she felt. She wrote about hearing voices, seeing shadows, and feeling an oppressive presence in the house. The final entry was particularly disturbing. "I fear the spirits that haunt this house. They grow stronger each day, and I am afraid for my life. If anyone finds this diary, please beware the darkness that dwells within these walls." Emily shared the diary with her parents, who were equally disturbed by its contents. John decided to investigate the history of Hollow Creek House, hoping to find an explanation for the strange events. John's research revealed that Hollow Creek House had a dark and tragic history. The original owner, Thomas Holloway, had built the mansion in the late 1800s. He was a wealthy but reclusive man who became obsessed with the occult. Rumors suggested that he conducted dark rituals in the house, attempting to summon and control spirits. Tragedy struck when Holloway's wife and daughter died under mysterious circumstances. Holloway himself vanished soon after, and the house had been plagued by strange occurrences ever since. Subsequent owners either fled in terror or met untimely deaths, leading to the house being abandoned. Armed with this knowledge, John and Lisa realized they needed to find a way to cleanse the house of its dark past. They reached out to a local historian, Margaret, who was also a practitioner of ancient cleansing rituals. Margaret agreed to help and came to the house one evening. She brought with her an array of tools, candles, herbs, and ancient texts. She explained that the ritual would require the family's participation and that they needed to be prepared for a confrontation with the spirits. As night fell, Margaret began the ritual, chanting in a language that sounded both ancient and powerful. The air grew cold, and the house seemed to come alive with a sinister energy. Shadows moved along the walls, and whispering voices filled the air. Suddenly, a ghostly figure appeared before them. It was Thomas Holloway, his eyes filled with rage. "You dare to challenge me?" he snarled, his voice echoing through the house. Margaret stood her ground, continuing the chant. "You have no power here, Holloway. Your reign of terror ends tonight." The spirits of Holloway's wife and daughter appeared as well, their faces twisted in anguish. They reached out to the family, begging for release. Emily, feeling a surge of courage, stepped forward and addressed the spirits. "You don't have to stay here. You can be free," she said, her voice steady. "Let go of this place and find peace." The spirits hesitated, then began to dissipate, their forms dissolving into the air. Holloway roared in fury, but the ritual's power was too strong. With a final, deafening scream, he was banished from the house. As the ritual concluded, the oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the house felt lighter, almost welcoming. The family breathed a collective sigh of relief, grateful that the ordeal was over. Margaret smiled, her face showing signs of exhaustion but also satisfaction. The spirits are at rest now. Hollow Creek House is free from its dark past. The Masons thanked Margaret and began the process of truly making the house their home. The strange occurrences ceased, and the sense of unease was replaced with a feeling of tranquility. Emily continued to explore the house, discovering its hidden treasures and learning more about its history. She felt a connection to Eleanor and the other spirits who had once been trapped there, vowing to honor their memory. Months passed, and the Masons settled into their new life in Ravenswood. Hollow Creek House, once a place of fear and tragedy, became a symbol of hope and renewal. The family hosted gatherings, sharing their story and the house's history with the community. Emily, inspired by her experiences, decided to pursue a career in journalism, much like Claire Bennett. She wanted to uncover and share the hidden stories of places like Hollow Creek House, ensuring that the past was never forgotten. John and Lisa found happiness in their new home, their bond strengthened by the challenges they had faced together. They knew that they had made the right choice in moving to Ravenswood and were grateful for the fresh start the town had given them. The story of Hollow Creek House and the Mason family's bravery became a part of Ravenswood's rich tapestry of legends. The house stood as a reminder of the power of courage, unity, and the ability to overcome even the darkest of pasts. Emily's articles about the house and other haunted locations gained widespread acclaim, shedding light on the forgotten corners of history. She became a respected journalist, dedicated to uncovering the truth and preserving the memories of those who had come before. One evening, as the Masons were enjoying a quiet dinner, the doorbell rang. John opened the door to find a disheveled man standing on the porch. He introduced himself as Samuel Holloway, a distant relative of Thomas Holloway. Samuel had heard about the Masons' experiences and wanted to learn more about the house and its history. "Please come in," John said, inviting Samuel inside. Samuel looked around the house with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "I've spent years researching my family's history. I had no idea the mansion was still standing, let alone inhabited." As they sat in the living room, Samuel shared what he had uncovered about the Holloway family. He explained that Thomas Holloway had been part of a secret society dedicated to exploring the supernatural. Their experiments had gone horribly wrong, leading to the tragic events that had plagued the house. "There's one thing I need to see," Samuel said, his voice tinged with urgency. Thomas kept a hidden room somewhere in the house, filled with his most dangerous artifacts. If it's still here, we need to find it and ensure it's safe. Intrigued and slightly apprehensive, the Masons agreed to help Samuel search for the hidden room. They combed through the house, looking for any clues or secret passages. Emily, recalling Eleanor's diary, suggested they check the basement, where the most unsettling events had occurred. As they descended into the basement, they noticed a section of the wall that seemed out of place. With some effort, they managed to pry it open, revealing a narrow staircase leading further down into darkness. The air grew colder as they descended, and the sense of unease returned. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a heavy wooden door inscribed with strange symbols. Samuel recognized the markings as protective wards, designed to keep whatever lay beyond contained. With a deep breath, Samuel pushed the door open. The room was filled with shelves of old books, jars of strange substances, and ancient artifacts. In the center of the room stood an altar, much like the one described in Thomas Holloway's journal. "This is it," Samuel said, his voice hushed. "We need to be careful. Some of these items are incredibly dangerous." As they carefully examined the contents of the room, Samuel explained the significance of each artifact. There were relics from various cultures, each with its own dark history. Some were used in rituals to summon spirits, while others were meant to contain them. Emily's attention was drawn to an ornate box on one of the shelves. It was covered in intricate carvings and had a heavy lock. "What's in here?" she asked. Samuel's expression grew serious. "That box contains the most dangerous artifact of all, a cursed amulet that Thomas used in his experiments. It has the power to control spirits, but at a great cost. Anyone who uses it risks becoming possessed by the very entities they seek to control." John and Lisa exchanged worried glances. "What should we do with it?" John asked. "We need to destroy it," Samuel replied. It's too dangerous to leave intact. Destroying the amulet proved to be more challenging than they had anticipated. The protective wards around it were incredibly strong, and it resisted all attempts to break it. Samuel suggested they perform a ritual to weaken the amulet's power before attempting to destroy it. The Masons and Samuel prepared for the ritual, gathering the necessary materials and carefully following the instructions from one of the ancient texts. As they began to chant, the air grew colder, and the room filled with a dark, oppressive energy. The amulet glowed with an eerie light, and the spirits of the Holloway family appeared once more, their faces twisted in anger and fear. "You cannot destroy the amulet," Thomas Holloway's spirit hissed. "It is bound to us, and we are bound to it." Emily stepped forward, her voice steady. "We have to end this. You can be free, but the amulet must be destroyed." The spirits hesitated, then began to waver. The ritual's power grew stronger, and the amulet's glow intensified. With a final, deafening crack, the amulet shattered, releasing a burst of energy that filled the room. The spirits of the Holloway family began to dissipate, their forms dissolving into the air. Thomas Holloway's spirit lingered for a moment, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and relief. "Thank you," he whispered, before fading away. With the amulet destroyed, the oppressive energy in the room lifted, and the house felt lighter once more. Samuel and the Masons carefully removed the remaining artifacts, ensuring they were properly contained and disposed of. Margaret returned to help with the final cleansing, performing a ritual to seal the hidden room and protect the house from any future disturbances. As the ritual concluded, the house felt peaceful, as if a great weight had been lifted. "Thank you for your help," John said to Samuel and Margaret. "We couldn't have done this without you." "It was my pleasure," Samuel replied. "I'm just glad we could put an end to the Holloway family's dark legacy." With the house finally free of its dark past, the Masons were able to fully embrace their new life in Ravenswood. Hollow Creek House became a place of warmth and happiness, a symbol of resilience and renewal. Emily continued her work as a journalist, uncovering and sharing the hidden stories of other haunted locations. Her experiences at Hollow Creek House gave her a unique perspective, and her articles gained widespread acclaim. John and Lisa found joy in their new home, hosting gatherings and sharing their story with the community. The house, once a place of fear and tragedy, became a beacon of hope and unity. The story of Hollow Creek House and the bravery of the Mason family became a cherished part of Ravenswood's history. The house stood as a reminder of the power of courage, unity, and the ability to overcome even the darkest of pasts. Emily's articles about the house and other haunted locations inspired many, shedding light on the forgotten corners of history and preserving the memories of those who had come before. She became a respected journalist, dedicated to uncovering the truth and ensuring that the past was never forgotten. The Mason's story was passed down through generations, a testament to the enduring power of resilience and the human spirit. Hollow Creek House remained a place of light and hope, its dark past banished and its future bright. And so, the legacy of Hollow Creek House lived on, a symbol of the triumph of good over evil, and a reminder that even in the face of darkness, there is always hope.